Grief is a hard thing to come to terms with. It's one of those emotions that's difficult to articulate and even harder to express through art. Majora's Mask never explicitly tells you what it's about, but over time, one theory has emerged as a widely accepted lens through which the game can be viewed: grief. Grief is not a theme that the game flat out states, but it's one that's supported by many, including in the thoughts of its creators. Before we dive into this video, we do have to agree that this theory is real and is widely considered true. It's something we can explore through the game's mechanics and the creator's insights, and we don't necessarily need to prove it or debate whether it's the actual true reader's response. We can just accept that the theory exists and see how that plays out in the layers of the game itself. With that in mind, let's examine how Majora's Mask expresses grief, not only by telling us about it, but by asking us to live through it. One of the things the grief theory is based on is the actual words of the creators, who described the game as more personal, more emotional, and more internally focused than the other entries in the series, especially Ocarina of Time. The game never states its theme outright, but it consistently communicates through its systems, and the clearest of those systems is the mask system. Not just what the masks do, but what they ask of you. Because in Majora's Mask, wearing a mask is not just a transformation, it's a performance. On the surface, masks are tools. They grant abilities, they open paths, and they allow you to interact with the world in new ways. That is their mechanical purpose, but it's not their meaning. Because the most important masks in the games are not discovered, they're inherited. They come from people who are gone, from lives that ended before they could fully resolve. The masks of transformation make this especially clear. The Deku Mask is not earned through effort, but given by the spirit of a child who's already died. When you wear it, you don't simply resemble him, you perform as him. You move the way he moved, interact with the world the way he would, and exist in a role that is no longer his to fill. It's not just continuation, it's embodiment. You are asked to act in his place. The Goron mask follows the same pattern. Darmani died carrying failure and regret, unable to complete what he set out to do. When you wear his mask, you take on his identity, but you also take on the expectations that come with that identity. You are not simply helping his story, you are performing the version of him that the world still expects to see. You stand in front of others as Darmani, not as Link, and in doing so, you give them something they need, even if it's not entirely real. The Zora masks make this even more explicit. Mikau's death leaves behind relationships that don't have closure, people who still expect him to be present. When you wear the mask, you step into that role and you perform it for them. You interact with those who knew him, you respond in ways they understand, you become, for all practical purposes, the version of Mikau they need to see. And this is where the system connects directly to grief, because grief is not only internal, it's also social. There are moments where you don't just feel grief, you have to perform around it. You act composed when you're not, you say the right things, you take on responsibilities and present a version of yourself that others can accept. The masks reflect this. They're not just identities you inherit, they are roles that you have to perform in order to move forward, both for yourself and for others. You don't always have the space to process grief privately. Sometimes you're expected to carry on and be what is needed in that moment. And that often means becoming something you're not, at least temporarily. The game turns that into a mechanic. Every time you wear a mask, you're not just gaining an ability, you are stepping into a role that someone else left behind and performing it well enough that the world accepts it. Even the smaller masks follow this pattern. They're tied to moments of emotional tension, regret, longing, unresolved relationships. You help people by not fixing everything, but by meeting them where they are. Sometimes that means saying the right thing. Sometimes it means showing up in the right way. Sometimes it means presenting a version of yourself that fits the moment, even if it's not how you truly feel. And in return, you receive a mask, a representation of that interaction, a piece of that emotional exchange that stays with you. This connects directly to the 3-day cycle. The world resets, events repeat, and the people return to their original states. But your experience doesn't reset. You remember everything, and the masks remain. They carry the memory of what happened even when the world forgets. They are proof that something was felt, something was done, something mattered, even if that can't be preserved. That's exactly how grief works. Life continues, routines return, and the world moves forward, but internally, something remains. Something you carry, something that shapes how you move through everything that comes after. The masks become that weight. Not burdens in a negative sense, but something that you hold on to. Something that informs who you are becoming. And at the same time, they are something that you wear, something you present outwardly, something that allows you to function in a world that has already moved on. By the end of the game, this dual meaning becomes clear. The masks are both internal and external. They are memory, and they are performance. This is what makes the final mask, the Fierce Deity mask, so important. It's often interpreted as a final reward, as a form of ultimate power. But the way you receive it reframes it entirely. You only receive it after you give away every other mask. Every role you've performed, every memory you've carried, every piece of identity that you've taken on is handed over. In that moment, you're no longer performing for anyone. You're no longer carrying anyone else. And what you receive is something empty of that weight. Not as an upgrade, but as a release. A brief moment where you're no longer defined by what you've carried or who you've had to be. And that moment is enough. Because Majora's Mask is not about avoiding grief. It's about learning how to carry it, how to live with it, and how to continue forward even when it reshapes who you are. The masks are how the game teaches that. Not by telling you what grief is, but by teaching you how to wear it. I hope you liked this video. I'm having a blast making these, and I want to thank all of the people that have subscribed. I honestly was not expecting that. As always, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for coming by. I might not know you, but I love you. Take care.